Hey everyone, Tony D and Little Joan here. And we're doing a hot take. A hot take, Little Joan. A hot take. This one is about, I guess you'd call it about propaganda and the persistent, persistent nature of it. I was in the store. I'm buying ingredients for my holiday cookies. And the woman ahead of me who's done her transaction is holding court with the cashier and I guess another cashier who was bagging her groceries. And she's going on and on about Trump. Trump's been impeached, and this is what's going to happen. And, she was very overly optimistic about Trump leaving office. So she thinks Trump is basically out of office. I didn't hear the whole thing, so maybe she was making some roundabout point and didn't really mean everything she said, but it sounds to me like a lot of her information was just wrong. Like she didn't really have a firm grasp of the process of impeachment or what really is going on, which I don't blame her because I think a lot of people who, and I know a few of them who watch mainstream news, don't seem to have a good grasp on what's happening. When they said the Iraqis had weapons of mass destruction, they just moved them over to Syria. A lot of people still believe that to this day, and that was absolutely not true. Absolutely not. In fact, it was just recently revealed that Nancy Pelosi knew that even before we went into Iraq during the Bush administration. And so it to me, it speaks to the persistent nature of how propaganda works, because it wasn't just that this woman had the propaganda in her head that she believed it. She had become an avatar for the propaganda and was now granted, this is a cashier, two cashiers who are at work. Maybe they're just humoring her until she runs out of gas, and then the next customer comes in. They're just being polite. That's certainly a possibility. I give it a 50-50. I mean, they seem to be listening to her and seem to be agreeing with her. They might have just said that, but this woman who was preaching about how done Trump is clearly believed, a lot of what's come out of the mainstream media, and from which starts at the Democrats and then goes into the media and then into her brain. And it just occurred to me that this is going to go really bad for the Democrats. So it's not just that they don't, let's say, deliver on impeachment as they've implied they're going to do. It's also true that the overpromising, and I think the overpromising wasn't overt. I think it was more like implied, like, yes, we're going to impeach Donald Trump and we're going to get him out of office, which is a big promise. And I think the implication is, they were going to at least try to do that, and that maybe some of the Republicans would come on board and help them, and because some of the Republicans hate Trump too, clearly. But that overpromise is going to really bite the Democrats in the butt come, well, the election, certainly, and the coming weeks, because at some point, either Nancy Pelosi will have to turn in the articles of impeachment, or, which won't go anywhere because the Senate won't convict Trump, or she will have to decide, we're not going to do this. In which case, the Trump administration is already claiming that technically hasn't been impeached yet until the articles reach the Senate, which may or may not be a legal technicality. It kind of doesn't matter in the long run because we all know Trump's not going to be removed from office. The Senate's going to clear him. They don't have enough votes, and the Republicans are united under Trump. So, but for Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats to hold the articles until the election would basically prove how partisan they were. Not that someone like this woman at the supermarket, not that it would matter to her, or the people with Trump derangement syndrome, they would still, carry water and spout whatever excuse comes across the news. Well, we haven't really, we're not ready to turn in the articles yet. We're waiting on some further evidence or whatever. They count on the ignorance of most of their voting base to not understand the rules of impeachment. I mean, and most people don't. It seems to me a lot of people don't understand the basic rules. That's why a lot of the pundits on the internet have been saying over and over, he's not impeached until the Senate votes for him. They don't have the votes. It's not going to happen. So the regular mainstream outlets, while fully aware of that, I believe, it's not that they say it's not going to happen. They kind of tease the possibility like, well, maybe, if some Republicans come over and, it's going to happen, but, it just might take longer, maybe. I mean, it's unlikely, but it might. And, that hope is really going to be dashed, especially with someone like this woman who didn't seem to understand fully the intricacies of impeachment, and that she's been led to believe that, we have a good shot at this, at least I think. And I know some other people who are saying that, like, well, he was impeached, so this is a good shot at getting rid of him. Also true that they also think, and this is basically why they did it, that the impeachment would hurt his chances in the election, which it did for a short time, but now the polling's gone the other way. It's like I said in previous videos, it doesn't matter who it is that is the target of hypocrisy or fraud or whatever. You always feel bad for that person, even if that person's kind of a jerk. It's like the character. Have you ever seen the episode of The Simpsons with the snooty French waiter who then sues the Quimby family, and the Quimby, the nephew of Mayor Quimby, who is a total jerk, but Bart sees that he's completely innocent, and really it was the waiter's fault that he got hurt. It wasn't that Quimby beat him up, and Bart eventually has to come out and tell the truth, because he feels bad for the nephew Quimby, because he doesn't deserve, even though Quimby's nephew is a jerk, he doesn't deserve the treatment of going to jail or losing money or whatever. It's unfair, and people, I think most people naturally hate unfairness, and I think that's what's driving the poll numbers with Trump. The more unfair the Democrats are in this process, the more people say, come on, that's not fair, or that's not right. Even though Trump is a big, boisterous guy who a lot of people don't like. Personally, I find him at times funny and at times annoying. I'd be extremely wary to do any kind of business with him. I'd be completely paranoid that the guy would rip me off. I'd want to be paid in advance by a guy like Trump. I wouldn't just take anything from him on face value, and I wouldn't even feel like a contract would be very valid with him, because he has so many lawyers, and he's the kind of guy that just say, F you, or the kind of guy that says, well, I don't like this, so I'm not paying you. As I said in previous videos too, there are rumors that he's done just that for a lot of different reasons. So, but as president, it's kind of a different deal. You know, as president, there's more at stake for him. He's a rich guy. He's in his 70s. How much longer is he gonna live? And he wants to be known. He wants to be liked. You can't be liked as a bad president. You're not gonna be liked. You're not gonna be liked if you start a war or, do something awful. Trump is trying to do good things. Now, you can argue that the wall is a bad thing, but I don't think it's really good or bad. I think it's just probably the wrong strategy to pursue with immigration, but it's a strategy. And, he's come through with his promises more than any other president in recent memory. And you could say, well, technically some of those promises aren't true, but they're close enough. I mean, the wall's close enough, and you've got high unemployment, a great economy, which was one of his major things. Veterans like him because of what he did for that. He passed bipartisan legislation with the prison system. He's moved the needle on North Korea. He seems to be trying all sorts of peace initiatives in the Middle East. And he promised to be a volatile, unpredictable leader so people wouldn't know America's strategy, and that is definitely true. So one has to wonder what the Trump presidency would be like if he wasn't facing a nonstop barrage of media negativity 24/7. And that someone like this woman in the supermarket actually could sort of get the real story, rather than, a bunch of liberal pundits who are constantly saying, no, Orange Man bad. I know people who really hate Trump, and most of their news sources are just television, newspapers, and, and when I tell them, hey, these all have liberal bias, like all of them have liberal bias, because most of them do. And it's not like a cabal. It's just that most people who go to college for communication, end up getting a very liberal education, and not, they are taught, and I was taught, that Republicans are for the rich, conservatives are a bunch of jerks. Everybody I met, save for, I would say, one professor. A lot of the professors, they just stayed out of politics, but there was one professor who I think was conservative, but he kept it close to the vest. All the other ones were so openly left. They always had this sort of, and this is the 80s, they always sort of had this nod to, like, oh, well, socialism would work. It's just these rich people won't let us have it. And so years and years and generations of that have produced not only students who think that way, but professors who thought that way, because they used to be the students who thought that way. And they keep pushing the needle and pushing it. And that's the natural state of humans. They push ideas. And, that so many college students come out thinking that, it takes a few years for them to kind of get in the workforce and realize, oh man, taxes are really high. I don't know if I want to support all this. And then they start making some money, and they as they get older, they tend to move more conservative because they become less idealistic. They see the world for what it is. So, the propaganda that this woman saw, and I believe she saw a lot of propaganda, has set her expectations for a massive fall. And when that massive fall comes, it's the DNC are going to pay dearly, because someone like her will feel so burned by this. She was told over and over again, Trump's going to go, and Trump's a bad guy. And at the end of the day, that is going to be tested, and I don't think it's going to be revealed as a truth. The opposite will be revealed. It'll be revealed that yeah, he was a pretty okay president. He he did some cool stuff for the country and he got reelected and he probably shouldn't have been impeached. And most of the Democrats who impeached him were just doing it for partisan reasons, and most of those guys were corrupt. So, I was also watching Tim Pool, and he was talking about the socialists online talking about the impeachment and how they were criticizing the impeachment and criticizing the Dems for pursuing it. I disagree with him in that he said that the socialists should be commended for, picking apart that argument. I don't think the socialists are really picking apart the argument because they think it's a bad argument, or they agree with the concept like, well, we shouldn't impeach Trump per se. Like, yes, it is. They're acknowledging it's a bad strategy, and it is. But I think the real reason they've turned on the Democratic establishment is because a lot of them have stated quite openly that their goal is to destroy the DNC. And because out of the ashes of that, they expect to come to power. So if the Democratic Party is absolutely wiped off the map, the socialists expect to step in and revitalize it. I think that's what they want to do. I think that's why they're even making this noise. And I think you're going to see a big change in the rhetoric when Trump is reelected. I think you're going to see the socialists not go after Trump anymore. They will concentrate all their anger towards the Democrats in an attempt to take over the party. And I think you're going to see the media change its tune too, because they're going to be looking for ratings, and Trump is still a ratings grabber. So they may or may not support it, depending on how the ratings go. I don't think socialism is a ratings boost, and quite frankly, television's just falling apart in general. So I don't think that's really going to work. It's going to be this YouTube, and all the other various platforms. That's going to be the new TV.